Robbie, Leinster Senior Football Championship, first victory done and dusted. Carlow this week, Offaly next week. The games come thick and fast.
They do, yeah. No rest there, no break, which is great in one way because it keeps the focus nicely on for Offaly, which are obviously a big test coming down the road. But yeah, delighted to get over today, and as I say, all eyes now to Offaly.
In advance of today's game, there's been a lot going on in the Meath camp over the last week or so. News broke last weekend of two departures. It couldn't maybe distract from the focus, or was it a distraction over the course of the week?
No, to be fair, look, at obviously hugely disappointed to lose the lads. As I said, they've done a Trojan amount of work with the group, and that obviously leaves you with a bit of a loss. But thankfully, our focus has been Carlow all along, and we didn't deviate off that. We just kept to the plan, and I think the lads delivered on that today.
That when you lose two people like that, it does pose its own challenges. There's maybe a void to be filled. Conor Gillespie maybe has stepped up a little bit more. Shane Supple as well. Is it a case of every man just taking on a little bit more responsibility?
Yeah, definitely. And listen, we're very lucky with the quality we have in the Meath setup there at the moment. And as I say, I'd like to think there wasn't much of a gap as we planned for this week. As I say, between analysis and training, it was all very good. And as I say, once the players were able to deliver that today, that was the main thing for us.
I suppose supporters out there in the county, they're all wondering, is there a why, is there a why not? The two men, did they just decide to step away, or is there more to it?
Yeah, look, these things are never straightforward, Brian, unfortunately. And as I say, the main thing for us was they've done a huge amount of work with the group, and a lot of credit has to go to the lads for that. But as I say, ultimately it's disappointing they're not there, but they're not. And for us now, we just have to move on. And for the group and for me, then we have to make sure we're ready for Offaly.
It's been a common theme from people discussing what's going on in camps like this. Carlow were the same, they had their own issues. That an awful lot of responsibility from here on in lies on players, and players taking ownership and driving things on themselves. The vibes coming out of the camp this week in Meath were that the players really took ownership and really were pushing things.
Yeah, and look, we've been trying to get it to a situation where the group are self-driven, and ironically, this probably helps in that regard. Some more lads obviously have to step up in different areas, and we would have seen that this week. So overall, it's, as I say, when you see lads, some of them are young, but they're able to step up to the mark, and as I say, they did it out there as well.
And you've a serious blend of youth, maybe not so much in the middle, and then you've experienced players like Brian Menton, Donald Keoghan, Seamus Lavin. The story seems to be coming out of camp that it's as much the younger players driving the whole setup this week, even fellas who maybe aren't making the 26 some weeks, as the older players. That has to be very pleasing from your point of view.
Yeah, that's huge. Like, we have a leadership group there that is quite young. Purposely we would have done that, but knowing that you have the other leaders like Brian and Keoghy and Jonesy, etc., and Podge around the group. So no, overall we keep pushing this point. It's the whole group that does it, and that's the reason we're able to get a win today. Is everybody's driving along and training, and as I say, without that we wouldn't be able to make the progress we've made.
Preparation for today's game. We all know the Carlow manager stepped away. It was probably a little bit of the unknown with Carlow, with a new manager coming in, Joe Murphy, a man who led Naas to win 3 senior championships. You probably came across him on the provincial scene with Kilmacud Crokes. How difficult was it preparing for a team you didn't know how they were going to set up?
Yeah, I suppose it's tricky enough. Again, thankfully we've all the tape on them, and obviously I know a lot of their players from our time prepping with Kilmacud and that, and for different reasons I'd have a link down with Carlow. So I would have personally known them a lot, so it probably helped in the prep and the analysis on individual players and that. But just a quick chat with Joe, obviously very difficult. I think he had 2 sessions with them, so even at that, it was going to be very difficult for them to change a whole game plan from what they've been playing at. So it probably didn't affect us too much,
First half, Owen Frayne won the toss. He decided to play with the breeze. You made use of that breeze. You built up a very healthy half-time advantage. Every forward was playing very well. I think maybe all 6 starting forwards could have chipped in with the scores in that first half. As a team, the collective response in that first half was very impressive.
It was, and I certainly probably picked up in training. There was a lot of frustration post Inniskeen and the performance against Louth, and possibly some areas where we left some scores behind us and stuff like that. So you probably knew the lads were going to come out on fire, and we were probably hoping we had the win this one, from the first half, so we could push on and let the lads kind of off the leash. And look, they put up a healthy enough score, and that obviously was enough to see us through.
That's the positive. The negative, I suppose, in some aspects is the second half performance didn't hit the same heights. Maybe there was a slip off in intensity. What might be the cause in that?
Look, that's one of those tricky ones, I think, Brian, to be honest, when you have a lead like that. Although in the new rules with the win, they can be very, very tricky leads to actually have. But we were sloppy, that's the bottom line, and we turned the ball over too much. We kind of go after gold standard passing and gold standard execution how we play, and we didn't do that. So the lads will be aware of that. But again, something to work on for next week, which is in one way a great thing to have.
And next week is a huge challenge. Offaly, we all were in Tullamore 2 years ago when Offaly turned us over. There was many people in Mullingar a few years ago when we just about scraped over the line against Offaly in the Leinster minor final. There's a lot of those players will feature next week on both sides. They won Division 3 last week, very impressive. Beat probably a more fancy Kildare team over two games in the group stage and the final. It's going to be a massive challenge next week.
It's huge. I think I said to the lads inside, it's our biggest game of the season for loads of reasons. But again, having been in Croke Park last week and seeing the tape of Offaly, they're playing a fantastic brand of football. It's electrifying watching them play. There's pace everywhere. There's obviously a brilliant buzz and energy around that county. They've done a huge amount of work on both codes, and you can see that now coming into their senior teams as well. So they'll be bouncing in here in a high. They've two brilliant managers in Declan and Mickey as well. So yeah, I like, it's all up to us, I think, to see how we can perform and can we put in another performance to try and get after Offaly. But as I say, we're looking forward to it.
Looking back today, Carl Hickey was named in the 15. He then pulled out later on. Keane McBride came on to the 26 in place of him. Is Cahill a concern looking ahead for next week, or should he be back?
No, he rang me at 10. I was with a young for the soccer match, and he rang me at 11, and he was dying sick, absolutely dying sick. So he's picked up that virus that's doing the rounds. So hopefully, 24, 48 hours he'll be fine. He was actually saying he hasn't been sick in over a year, and then today it lands on him. So I felt disappointed for him. Obviously, he was due to start. But to be fair, Jack Kinlock came in and kicked 2 points, missed another one, could have had 3 or 4, and so that's what it's about. Next man up, and hopefully Cahill will be back for the next one.
And then, of course, Jack picks up a knock in the first half. Is there any diagnosis as to what the story is? He came off, he went back on, he came back off again.
Yeah.
It didn't look wonderful maybe from the stand.
No, he's very sore. He's gone out in a brace and crutches there. So look, we'll do the usual. We'll get him scanned and just I hope for Jack's sake that it's not too bad. But we won't know until we see the scan,
But then on the flip side, Dahi McGowan was on the extended panel, I think, today. He came on early on for a tote yesterday, scored 3 2-pointers, so he's a player coming back into the mix.
Yeah, Dahi, thankfully, he's been training really well, and I'm sure he'll have his hand up now for next week as well, and he brings something different. Gorgeous left foot that he has, he can score from distance as well, so he'll be right in the contention as well.
What would please you most from today's game?
I think just the overall attitude that we had. Obviously, as I said, the focus could have been disrupted with everything that went on, but the lads really just kept their heads down and kept to the plan. As I say, they executed from the start. It would have been tricky had we not performed there and left it hanging in the balance a little bit. But overall, that'd be it. As I say, they've equipped themselves very well, and on to Offaly.